Everyone okay? Is all right?
We're ready.
Should we just hyperventilate for a bit? Right, ready? Let's go.
Sweet. That's us. What's up, everyone? Welcome to our second episode. Just before we start, we want to respectfully acknowledge the Yugambeh people, the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, and pay our respects to their elders past and present, and all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today.
Okay, guys, so as you know, we do this. Is going to be a tradition for us. We want to flip the script, and we have, first and foremost, I just want a round of applause, Paki Paki, for our beautiful sister here with us that is joining us on our podcast. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
My name's Sharon, and I'm a Cherbourg girl.
Hey, let's go.
Cherbourg was established in the 1900s by the Salvation Army. And then the government took over, and Cherbourg is known as a dumping ground for the Aboriginal people. So I'm actually a descendant of 9 different language groups, and that's the cause of colonisation. Wow. So Cherbourg was one of the missions, Palm Island and Morabinda, so that's between those communities. A lot of families were separated just over little petty stuff like if you back-chatted the superintendent, which the superintendent happens to be a policeman, he would send you off, separate you from your family to one of the other communities. So that's how a lot of families got shifted around as well. And so my great-grandfather was part of Stolen Generation, so he ended up in Cherbourg with the missionaries. And he helped clear the land, and he actually planted the bunya trees which still stand there today.
That's beautiful. I don't want to cut you off, but we still have to flip the script. It's just tradition. So what happens is, what you do, girl, is you grab this, you open it up, you read it, and we will see. I think we will read from it and go in.
What, just...
anything.
Just so you're getting emotional.
Anything, just read what.
Flip it from the New Testament.
Oh.
Go, let's go.
Flipping it.
That Bible's upside down.
My glasses.
No worries.
The Bible's upside down. She doesn't have her glasses. Auntie Sophie's going to read this then. Anywhere.
Israel has not returned to God. Hear this word, you cows of Bashan, on Mount Samaria, you women who oppress the poor and crush the needy, and say to your husbands, bring us some drinks. The sovereign Lord has sworn by his holiness, the time will surely come when you will be taken away with hooks, the last of you with fish hooks.
So that was scary.
That was scary how much
so
it was.
Did you bring
almost...
us drinks?
I got a fish hook.
There's a whole lot of drinks on this table real quick. Okay. Thank you for flipping the script, Auntie. We just want to, again, introduce ourselves real quick because I don't know if you guys, this is your first time here with us. We just want to acknowledge all the people that have watched our previous podcast. Thank you so much for liking the page. And if you're just watching us tonight, go ahead, like the page, follow us on Instagram, and you can introduce yourself real quick. Oh, jeez.
Real quick.
Well, quick.
What's up, everyone? My name's Bills.
Hey, everyone. I am Becky.
Kia ora te whānau, I'm Sophie.
Kia ora, my name is Stubbing.
Hey. Islander proud.
All right.
Let's go.
You alright, Stubbs?
Yeah.
See, it's
I'm
serious.
just worried about the sit now. I just come down again. You know, I think we should probably just...
Where's the
Hey,
pin?
there's a pin.
There's a pin up there.
Yeah, just leave it.
Yeah, so I'll take it off, and then what I can do is drop the flag onto the white area.
Yes, sir.
Digitally.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to do that all again.
Yes.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
All right, let's weigh in on the events that took place.
No, hold on a second.
Okay.
Are we starting again?
I love food.
Or even just chop that part out and beep, and then come back. Beep.
Okay, let's weigh in on what happened. Share our thoughts, I guess.
I feel like
What happened yesterday and why it happened.
Starting from this side?
Yeah, did you go yesterday?
I did. And we, because we parked in an illegal area, we were so quick to get out of there.
No.
So we actually got there to support our pastor. Then I was sketching out the whole time. I was like, we need to move our car. Moved our car. And
Where do we park?
we got nowhere to park, so we actually just left.
We parked somewhere really.
But we were there just to support our brothers and sisters, the cause. And I guess just to represent our culture as Kiwis, as Māoris, as Pacific Islanders, to stand with our Indigenous brothers and titters. Is that what it's called? Hey.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
even that kind of stuff is cool, eh? Like learning like
The
lingo
lingo.
and stuff.
Learning the lingo.
But what's
deadly.
Gammon.
deadly?
Deadly.
I heard deadly heaps yesterday.
For brothers, you say butters.
Butters.
Yeah,
Butters.
butter.
Tell
Oh,
my
we say
butter.
butter.
Heavy my butter.
Deadly butter.
There.
That's how they talk too. I can get before I go too far.
You're talking like your workmates.
Yeah, your turn.
Nice.
I mean, I honestly, for myself, you know, we've been like in church back in New Zealand, we've been a part of some pretty crazy marches and standing like for our people back home, but being here in, you know, in Australia with the Indigenous and standing and seeing so many different cultures, like not just our Indigenous, Māori, but heaps of white people, Asians. What I loved was just the unity of everyone coming together, and it was peaceful. Yesterday was powerful, but I think just every single day afterwards from here on out, hence us having Aunty Shaz on here sharing, just to keep talking and you know, sending messages out to all the government councils, sending emails out through to
That's
the
right.
politicians, the people
good.
that are in positions of influence. I know with us, even though we're not from here, I think with us we can still play our part to support and tautoko each other.
100.
But yeah, that's me. That's your turn.
Yeah, yesterday for me was, you know, it was a emotional time coming up to Saturday because of, you know, for us as First Nations people, it was like, it's sad that's what happened over in the US, but for that to shine a light on everything, especially here for us, but in some sense we still feel like we're still left in the dark.
Yeah.
Because we've had like 432 deaths in custody and nothing's become out of it. And this is since 1991.
That's crazy.
That's
So-
only like 20 years, bro.
Yeah,
30 years,
yeah.
29
Crazy.
So, and you know, the media only covers, they stereotype our mob all the time. So they only show the bad bits. They don't show the full story of every tragedy that's happened. And it goes back to colonization. Like our ancestors were chained up, you know, and that fear of the white man, you know, our jarjums, our kids got to be fearful of the bullyman, the policeman chasing them, when it was just like back in the day when the bullyman was chasing them on the horse
Yeah.
and stealing our kids. And you know, it's a lot hasn't changed. But like yesterday, you know, this brings a lot of hope
Was
too.
there hope?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's good.
And to have, you know, it says in Isaiah, God will call all of his nations from north, south, east and west, and that's what I felt yesterday.
Yeah,
You know, and it also says in Matthew that those who are last shall be first and those who are first shall be last. Yeah, so Uncle Graham Pawson always quotes that out of Matthew.
Yeah.
You know, so I come under a lot of his teaching as well. Yeah,
It's powerful.
yeah.
Hard out.
That's awesome. For me, I wasn't there. I wasn't there present at the march. I had work, but from what I saw, it looked powerful. It sounded powerful, and it looks as though, when I look at that, I think people are getting it now. I hope people are getting it now. I hope that this doesn't die down.
Yeah.
I hope that we keep moving forward. I hope that protests don't stop. I hope that we move from just acknowledging, okay, this has happened, and I just hope that something begins to change. I don't know what's going to make this change happen. All I know is that the power is in the people.
Yeah.
100%. And if we can continue to stand, if we can continue to speak our truth and speak what it is that we know that is wrong and speak against injustice. You know, there's been so many perspectives that I've heard. I've spent all week listening to many different, I've listened to pastors, I've listened to Asians, I've listened to everybody just to hear and see what it is that they, you know, just to gauge from them what they think. And for me personally, if I can think about it, I just don't want this to stop. There's a momentum that is happening around the world. And when I think about Black lives, personally, I don't think it just the African Americans, I mean every nation, native tongue, every
Indigenous.
Maori, Aboriginal,
Native
Samoan,
American.
Tongan, Samoan. Oh, I've already said Samoan, but you know, Tongan, Niuean, all of us. Cook Island, sorry.
Cook Islands always get left out. Always get left out.
That's because he's a
I'm sorry,
Māori.
because you guys because you guys share with us. Nah.
You don't care about Cook Islanders.
Hey, we care about the food. That's what we care about. Nah.
Yeah, and the
We got
women,
you
the
covered
dancers.
for
And the
that.
dancers, the
happy-
women there are beautiful, nah. But I think for me, I think that's what Black Lives mean. It doesn't just mean one certain race, one, you know, the African people. I believe that it's all indigenous nations all together. But it's gonna take us to stand up and to do something, and to say something, and to not sit down anymore. And I can keep going on into that, but I'll hand it over to my husband. There you go, babe.
Sweet. I wasn't able to make it yesterday too, but I guess for starters, like the Black Lives Matter movement, for me, it means a lot because of how much, not just my life, but I guess our lives have been shaped around the culture of hip hop, which stemmed from African Americans.
Yeah.
You know, so my heart is attached in that way. But I guess, like I shared something on Facebook the other day, like if there's one positive thing you can take out of what happened with George Floyd, which isn't a positive thing at all, but it's the fact that things like this are starting to get spoken about.
It's an uprising, eh?
Yeah, people are starting to
Stand up.
People are starting to take notice of it. People are starting to share it, you know what I mean? And people are starting to defend minority cultures and, you know, even, I guess, Europeans or Caucasian people or whatever are starting to stand up for those that are looked at as lesser than them.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's not like, yes, this is the end goal, but it's definitely a start in the right direction. It's just a shame that it had to happen under these circumstances, but you know, nonetheless, it's definitely something that the whole world can learn from, and it's not, you know, it's not just relevant with us, it's not just relevant here or in New Zealand, but all over the world where people are mistreated. Yeah.
You know what's crazy though is I know we're talking about like all our different cultures. I think for myself personally, even at one time I was like even prejudiced against my own people.
Yeah.
Like because where I grew up, it was like we were all Māori in certain areas.
Sure.
Like it was just all culture. So if I went
100%.
to like a city, town or area where it was like Auckland and I'm from like far north and I see like Māoris that are like dressed up and you know because I was a hard out tomboy and I was just like you're just a plastic Māori, you don't know. And I was just like
Yeah,
that.
100%.
And as much as we're talking about the different, you know, like racism between our like
Different
black and
races,
white, but
yeah.
I think for myself just acknowledging
we-
acknowledging like I think just my own perceptions and those were things that were taught and learned because I hadn't like even my husband, he's Islander. I hated Islanders. Like this is just being real, only because I had never grown up. No, but
She hated them so much she married one.
But she love you now.
Couldn't resist this Islander.
She loves him now.
I know that was
Big
just,
and cuddly.
Big and cuddly.
but you know, I think when we can make it real and personal like that,
Come
I
on.
think
I
That's
like what you're saying there, especially with being prejudiced in our own with our own people. To be completely honest, oppression isn't just from the white man. We oppress ourselves sometimes.
100.
I'll be
Most of the
real.
time.
Yeah. Most of the time, we're looking at each other like you ain't a Māori. You don't speak the language. You haven't
don't
been
know where
back to
you're
your
from.
marae. You don't know your pepeha.
You're not a
You don't-
Māori, you don't live in the bush.
Yeah, you've not been on your mountain, and we, I feel as sometimes we, you know, we accredit your how Māori you are when you've done all those things. And I know this has been discussions that we've had, but I just feel that there was actually a video a friend of ours done, Andre. Shout out to Andre. I don't know his last name. It sounds.
Rebecca's,
It sounds like
Rebecca's
mahogany.
terrible with names.
It looks like Andre, Dre from
Jay
Rotorua.
Wade. Oh,
Moynihan.
That's I say mahogany, but it's Moina. What?
Mahogany.
Andre, shout outs to Andre Mahogany. Hey, I told you I'm dyslexic, and the Lord's telling me to own it. he shared a little bit about something, getting it right in your own home, within your own mob, within your own tribes, getting it right there. So we can be like, yo, let's stand up, let's rise. But hey, let's stand up for each other. Let's stop talking crap about each other, man. Let's stop doing all of this, because we can have that victim mentality. But that it all comes down to what we're doing within our own circles and our own mobs and squads and tribes. So that's my little input
we have
on
the
that.
same with our mob too. We talk about it was Reconciliation Week, and some of us have our time reconciling with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, hard out.
Facts, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hard out.
I think like for me, because like what you were talking about, like being prejudiced with your own people, because I left where I was from when I was 3 years old, and I moved to the city. I grew up in Auckland, which is like...
Sorry.
What are you
I
up
did
to?
It's just casually fighting on the drink.
I just farted in my drink. Kissing my bottle.
I grew up in Auckland, which is like the city compared to where my family's from. And like every time I'd go back home for like a tangi or birthday or something...
You see cousins like me.
Yeah. Cousins like her would be like, oh, look at this city kid, like, because I had nice shoes on.
Let's steal his t-shirt.
Yeah. Or I couldn't open a mussel or an oyster, you know what I mean? Like, so they're like, oh, you don't know anything, and rah rah rah. But
and you'd be like, you don't have anything.
but for real though, that shaped the way that I viewed that kind of living.
Yeah.
Because I was like, well, you're gonna treat me like there's nothing wrong with how I'm living. And I remember having a conversation with someone, and they were like, you need to learn how to catch a fish. You don't even know how to catch your own food. I was like, bro, just go to the shop and buy it.
I'll catch it at Woolworths.
You know what I mean? But that was me at a time where I was like ignorant to the fact that I do need to learn about that stuff and how to live off the land and all of that. But because of things that have been sown into my life when I was younger, I was like, nah, stuff all of it. Yeah. You know? To be honest, I had no care for Māori culture or anything like that until I was an adult. Like, legit, ask my parents. I went to school, and in high school, I studied Samoan. Like, I didn't even do Māori. I know more
Because you're
Samoan.
embarrassed of it, or just...
I know more
didn't-
Samoan than I do Māori.
So you're were you kind of like embarrassed of
I wasn't
Māori culture,
embarrassed
or
of
just
it, bro.
didn't-
I think I just got put off at a young age, and I was like, you know?
Because my whole perception on Māoris was based on my next door neighbours. So honestly, I grew up in the same hood, the same house for 21 years, and the neighbours were the same neighbours for 21 years. So my whole like concept of a Māori was based on a Monday to Sunday beer drinking, alcohol, bud smoking Māori.
Wow.
And leaving their kids in the lounge room while they're partying up in the kitchen. And my bedroom was right next door to their kitchen. So like
You heard
all the
everything.
songs that I know hip hop, because I never grew up listening to hip hop. The only hip hop I heard was the next door neighbours hip hop. And they're drinking at like 2 a.m. in the morning. So yeah, my whole perception on Māoris was based on that until I came to church. It was the first time I actually saw like well-dressed, well-spoken Māoris. So it changed my whole view on Māoris. And then I married one.
And you know what too?
Now you
know
got
what?
one with a muckle.
The thing that I guess that kind of leads into is like the misconception of what indigenous people should be like, or what they're known for. Yeah. You know, because when people speak of Māori people in New Zealand,
Druggies.
yeah,
Alkies.
druggies, alcoholics, poor people, you know, walk
Whories.
walk through the supermarket in your pajamas. You know what I mean? Like
Guilty.
people who are on the dole, broken families. You know, your missus gets beaten up by the husband or whatever. Just dysfunction. You know, that's what's associated with Māori. And I remember, I can't remember who I was talking to, but they're like, you know what? That's not what our people are like, though.
Yeah.
Our people are dignified people. Our people are educated people. Our people are spiritual people.
Mana.
Exactly, bro.
Yeah.
You know, and I know that there's that misconception and, I guess, judgment on indigenous people here as well.
Yeah.
It's the same. You just sounded like you were talking about us.
That's what I mean. We're cousins.
and it sounded like you was talking about Cherbourg.
Yeah. And did you go see Cherbourg?
Yeah, I'll
Bring up some good
take
memories?
you there.
Hey,
Yeah,
you know what's
I'd love to
crazy?
go.
the reason why we all moved here was our pastors. They came home. We lived in New Zealand, and it was her birthday, and she was talking about, because they went up to Cherbourg and they did like, I know you
Outreach.
probably have so many people that try and come in and save Cherbourg.
Yeah.
But, you know, like I know our church went up there. They did an outreach, and she started talking about how, you know, some of the young kids, they like crap and rubbed it all on the walls, and they were trying to scare them. And when she was sharing, I was like, Father, for me personally, I knew in my heart, I was like, we need to move there. Like, that sounds like, I know that's a place
You're
where
moving,
God
bro.
called, and he was just like, what? We're not moving there. I'm like,
How did they know?
I think for me, just, I know
I
God's
wouldn't even move back there.
Oh, hey, not so much, like, we're not getting there, but I think to Australia to
Yeah.
come here and be a part of helping the First People and the First Nations.
Yeah, and I think our heart feels
It's similar, so the same.
it is,
Yeah.
man.
There's a similar-
Because of how much we're attached to our culture.
Yeah.
We feel the pain that
Yeah.
your people feel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It hurts our hearts. Like when I read statistics, like 432 Indigenous people being killed in custody since '91.
Bro.
Like, that is
Yeah.
Aboriginal people are the most incarcerated people
Yeah.
in the world.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That is crazy.
And we have the highest rate of suicide too in the
Yeah.
world.
That's
Wow.
buzzing.
Yeah.
Right,
That's-
And now it's our babies that are killing themselves. We've got young, like within the last month, from home back in Cherbourg. Now there's been like three young boys committed suicide, and they were in their 20s.
Suicide sucks.
Yeah,
it's ugly, bro.
That's crazy.
yeah.
You know what's cool though? At the march yesterday, just listening to the elders speak, like every time actually it wasn't just even an elder, it was every time an Indigenous person got up to speak, the amount of respect in the place was crazy. Like everyone was attentive and just like ears, like listening, like everyone was saying, why did it have to take somebody in America to die for us to
Yeah.
get
To
together?
listen
to
to
our
listen.
elders.
To listen.
And
what's
even,
happening.
even
Crazy,
someone
bro.
was there
That's a good
saying,
point.
like another brother was there saying, like, where were you guys when we had another march, like previously?
Yeah.
Now
100.
you're
And we had the
listening.
highest,
100.
like a turnout, like 33,000 people. Like that's huge.
That was in the biggest one before yesterday was in 1988.
That's a long time. That's just when I was born.
Oh yeah.
31 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Just a lot of the stuff we're talking about is like it sounds real unfair, to be honest.
It is, bro. It
It
sucks.
is unfair.
Like,
It is
And then we were trying to talk and cover like shucks, bro. This is real like deep issues like
Yeah.
that
For sure.
that are always getting swept under the rug.
100.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We need more people in the sector, in the political
Yeah.
realm.
So with that being said, please vote NZ. Vision NZ. Okay. Go
that's
ahead
New
to the.
Because our elders are going to be calling for that to be open again and be investigated, like push it now, because it's just sitting on a bench.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just they did all that.
yeah, because there's like
investigate-
0 charges or
Yeah,
something.
it's
eh?
just
That's crazy.
Crazy, man.
See, and if the tables were turned and like one white copper died, like it's crazy because then, and if it was an Indigenous person that did it, you know what I mean? Like he would be charged straight away. Like when you think about just the reality of now.
That's
here
the
in
white
Australia,
privilege.
That's just,
That's a lot.
That's
I
the
think-
white
That's what-
privilege.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I
There
think
is a
too,
perception
like,
behind the white privilege though, because I've seen white single mothers with a baby, and then you got black families with 2 solid parents. You know, there's so many aspects. There's so many ways you can look at white privilege.
Yeah.
Because there's also black people that are privileged as well, like ourselves.
yeah, and the thing is that it's not everyone. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's not something you can slap on someone who's got white skin. Like, but I mean, I know you've been having conversations with some of our friends and like them saying like, far out, I didn't understand that white privilege was even a thing. Like I thought it was a joke until you realize that on like registration forms and stuff like that, there's like a certain area where it's like tick this if you're Indigenous or Torres Strait Islander, but there's nothing that says
Yeah.
if you're a blah 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 person, tick that. You know what
Yes.
and I was like, far out, that's pretty trippy. Like to think of it that way, that certain cultures get singled out, and it's the same in New Zealand. Like, you know, if you're a Māori,
Iwi.
tick this
Yep,
or
that's
whatever.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And even our kids in school get separated with that when they're Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander. They get special need because they're black. They're black kids. They need special needs.
Yeah, they immediately get something slapped on them
Yeah.
because of their culture.
yeah.
True.
Yeah.
And that's why you'd not want to go to school.
100.
Like, I didn't go to school, and it was because of that reason.
I think I had a recent situation where I went into the Bunnings to get some paint for a cupboard that I'm trying to DIY. It's taken me about 3 months to do.
And it still hasn't been DIY'd.
Excuse the kids in the background.
It's taken me a long time, but it's going to be so rewarding. I went into the Bunnings, and because of what's been happening recently, I've been really, really not on edge, but just aware. And so I walked into the Bunnings, and I was greeted by, like, you know, 2 European, a Pakeha woman and a Pakeha man, and I just said, hey, where's the paint? And they said, oh, just go this way, that way, around the corner. And I thought, you know, if this was someone else, would they have
would
come with
show
me and shown me it? Like, I was just like, and it's not that I'm like, I feel dumb that they didn't. It just now I'm just very aware of things that are happening around me. And I'm like, if it was a white Pakeha woman that asks, they would have been, oh yeah, come follow me, because they weren't doing anything. But I thought, like, shucks, man, maybe I don't know. But I did think about it, and I thought, far out, you know, am I thinking too much into it, or is it just something that just
You know what's
happens?
crazy though, is the fact that we think like that. It shows how mistreated our people have been. Do you know what I mean? The fact that is
It's
even
normal.
No, well, the only reason
part of
why
our
I
thoughts.
kind of... No, you're right 100%. But the only reason why I said it was because if that were me, I would take the white lady to the paint. Like, I'll be like, all right, okay, come on, I'll
Customer
show you where it is.
service, eh?
Because it's a customer service. But then it's also like well, you're not
Hey,
doing
look, they
anything
could've
around
just-
it.
But out of
Crappy
that
day,
guy's defense, there could have been an experience that he had with another, say, brown female, and she would
Yeah,
have been
true.
like, excuse me, sir, can you
and
show
you
me?
never, and again, you never know what's
Yeah.
happened on the other side. But I did wonder about it and thought, huh.
I don't work there then.
But that's what I mean though. Is like,
Like,
the,
I mean,
the fact
because
that we even
you've
have
worked,
to think
but
like
the thing
that.
is that Bill's
Hey,
has
hey,
worked
feel
at
free to cut
Bunnings
us off,
before,
Auntie.
and when he served a customer, he's never gone, oh, the timber you want is down there around the corner.
Take
He's
Yes, I
it.
Nah, you've told me that you've like had to show them. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, you don't get them to guess where the whatever it is that they're looking for. Anyway,
I
that's-
still get asked for them to check my bag when I walk out of Kmart, and this was only like a couple of weeks ago. Yeah.
Now check
that
your
is
face.
crazy.
I don't get asked. They just look at me and then they look away. Like, I'm soft like butter, bro. Like, you ask me, I'll probably go, oh, you have a look, you know? The
Even like
perception,
I
eh?
even get asked what nationality I am, and I say I'm Aboriginal. I get the what? Really?
Passes
Yeah.
them, Aldi.
Wow.
Yeah, I get asked.
Passes what-
That's why I'm going to get a shirt that says I come from the land you walk on.
Come on, this
Come
me.
on now.
Yeah.
Can I get one of those? Oh no, I'm not even from here.
I'll get
That's
you one that
gangster.
says I respect the land I walk on.
Yeah, we'll do that one. That one sounds good.
I think it'll be,
Funny.
I think it'll be
Oh my
cool
gosh.
to talk about our first encounter or experience with racism.
That's
Our
good.
first one?
I've shared
Or
mine.
like our
so you
most
guys,
vivid memory
you guys
of
weigh in.
racism. Racism?
Bro,
Racism.
okay. The first time I got pulled over here.
Hey, we've got a bad history with
Over
cars
here.
getting pulled
Yeah,
over, guys.
over here. The first time I got pulled over here. And I didn't see it as a big deal. But when they gave me like my fine and stuff, and under the culture it said indigenous. And I was
Bro,
like,
let's be honest. He looks indigenous, eh? Like,
Yeah,
slightly.
yeah, you look like a butter.
I am a butter.
You look like a butter.
Tara.
You look like a butter.
Al, what's a tutter? It's a
No,
tutter and a
honestly,
butter.
you can, I reckon, yeah, you do. You could pull it off.
I probably could, which is probably why they wrote it.
Yeah.
But I was like, bro, you didn't even ask me.
Yeah.
Like, you know? And I had, at the time, I had a New Zealand license. you know? Yeah, bro.
How long did you have that license while you were in
Pretty
Australia?
shocking, bro.
2.5 months. 2.5 months legally.
What
So
classification was
really, you just got pulled over because you
it
were in the
ladies?
wrong.
Nah, well, I don't know. I was in the wrong, but I mean, they didn't ask me what my course was.
Yeah.
You know, they just assumed that that's what it was. But I mean, I guess encounters of not even racism, but just discriminating because of where you're from. Like, I went to school in South Auckland. I got kicked out of my class on the first day of school. It was like the first class of the new year. And I got kicked out for doing nothing. I went to the head of department, and then she was like, oh, you're one of the naughty kids from Mrs. Blah, blah, blah's class, eh? And I was like, bro, you can search me up on your database or whatever. Like, I've never had any trouble or been kicked out of class before.
Yeah.
And I got kicked out of class because I asked the teacher if she could do the role. because she was a new teacher and everyone in our class was asking her stupid questions, and I was like, Miss, can you just do the role, please? And she was like, that's it, get out. And I was like,
Yeah, you put pressure on her.
Mrs. Blah blah blah.
That's it.
yeah, Mrs. Blah, blah, blah.
She's still alive today? Nah.
Oh, I don't know. Probably. Like, she, yeah. But I mean, you know that those kind of encounters are something that happen,
Memorable.
like, all the time.
Biscuits.
It's not like just
So-
pinpointing one.
That's cool.
I think for me is when we moved from Cherbourg. So I was 8 when we moved, and I never seen so many white people in my life when I went to school. But we still went back to Cherbourg every weekend and every school holidays, and we'd go every 2 weeks before the holidays, so I'd follow my friends to school. So it felt like we never left, and we were still like homesick.
Yeah.
But going to a school and being the only black girl in the classroom, and then
Yeah.
getting called darky and blackie, and yeah.
Chocolate.
Chocolate.
Did you get called chocolate?
I got called caramel. No, I didn't. I got called pinky.
You're a white boy.
We didn't face racism, we faced sizes of me.
Sizes and
We didn't have
fatism.
racism. We have way.
And in colours,
racism.
colours.
Yeah, weight issues along with being your colour. It's like, it's all on.
What about yours?
I just shared about my Bunnings situation. I feel like that's pretty...
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Oh, I think for me, what's crazy is I think I was 16. I honestly thought that cafes, I never went to a cafe or Subways because I thought it was for white people. Like, honestly, and that was crazy. Like, I told my husband, I was like, I
They
didn't
are.
want to go into Subway because I didn't know how to order. I honestly didn't, and I was scared. And I remember the first time I went, I told my sister, she was laughing. I was like, "Oh, what do I do? Do I go in there?" I was just scared because I was like, "I bet you there's going to be white people in there. Then it's going to be shaming because I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do." And so that's why I didn't go in there. Only because, like I said in our last podcast, I've been to 14 plus different schools because we moved around New Zealand. That wasn't by choice. That was, due to situations with my mum, who was amazing. She's a beautiful woman. Rest in peace, mum. But yeah, I think just knowing her background, it was her choices that, we had to move around to different towns, and those towns, they were predominantly Māori. I lived in Auckland heaps. Like, I lived in Otahu, I lived in Manurewa. I've been to heaps at Takanini, I've been to so many schools, but I think, the Subway incident for me, that was something I had to break through on myself, just cafes, because I thought that was for rich white people when you sit there, have coffees and cafe and stuff, because I wasn't used to that. But yeah, I think it was just a mind shift and changing that. You're just going to laugh if you want. It's okay. I
No,
won't
that's
be
cool.
offended.
I'll talk about my first experience with racism. So my dad is half Cook Island and half European. His dad is full on white. Like, if
White
you were to
man.
look at him, you'd think he is a white man, and he is a white man. So at the time when I was about 8, 9, he was living down in Christchurch, in a place called Hamlin Springs. It was just outside of Christchurch, which is like the whitest
I've been
place
there.
ever. Anyway, we went down there for one school holiday, and me and my sister, we jumped in. We went to the spa pool that was there, and there was not one brown person there. Like, I blended in because I'm
You're
fair,
fair.
I'm fair. So I jumped in the spa pool, and the kids are sweet. There's probably like 10 white kids in there. We're like, hey. My sister is dark. She's brown. She's probably browner than you 3 girls. She jumps in, and then I heard one kid yell out, "Oh no, the water's going to turn into poo." That was my first encounter with racism. And honestly, like, a part of me wanted to go and be with my sister, but the other part was like, shucks, I'm going to be a minority if I go but I ended up jumping off my sister, and we went to another pool. And every pool that we went into, the kids jumped out of it. And me being white, a lighter shade, and her being dark, it was like, whoa. I never experienced that. So my experience was watching my sister go through it, which was crazy.
Wow.
That's hard.
Yeah. And I was like 9. She was 4 years older than me, so she was probably
Did
like
she
13.
cry, bro? Did any of that hurt her?
I can't remember how she felt, but I remember just looking at it, and she's like,
Did you tell your mum?
yeah. My mum was like, "I'm gonna go find the kids," but the kids are jumping from start to start.
Point them out.
It's funny though, because I think because when you look at that situation, these are just kids, right? And then obviously racism is something that's taught.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was the same for us towards other cultures.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Towards islanders, towards white people, towards Asians, towards anyone. It's stuff that you get taught because of the demographic you hang around,
Yeah.
or like the people you're associated with. Everyone has this thing where like, oh nah, you know, they're the blah blah blahs, you know. So you make jokes and stuff like that. Like when I grew up, I went to school in East Auckland, which is like a pretty, you know, above average area. And when I went to school there, I was the brown kid, right? And then I went to school in South Auckland, which is like the brown area.
100.
And at that school, I was the white kid.
Yeah, 100.
You know, so it's depending on where you are or who you're hanging around.
Yeah.
The stuff just gets taught to you by default.
Yeah.
You know, so as much as that's a crap thing, if I ever heard my kids say something like that,
Oh,
it
man.
would be,
They'll be getting there.
brother, it would hurt my heart, you know? It would hurt. But yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
I remember once my mother took me back to school and said, "What are you picking on her for? She could pass as one of you because I'm light skinned." And I thought, I don't want to look like them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, it is. It's
Yeah, I thought the same thing. Like when people would call me the white kid and stuff like that, I'd be like, bro, I ain't white. Like, you know, I always try to defend my brownness. You know, which thinking about now is like, but there is that side of me, you know, I'm what, like a quarter European or whatever. You know, and there is that side of me, which for me, I guess is like the hardest thing for me to accept. Like it's been hard because of the history that has taken
harder.
place
On the white man.
with England
Yeah.
and, you know, colonizing our countries. And it's funny because I've read an article about a lady who was talking about how because she felt so associated with where she lived in New Zealand or where she grew up, she'd done a Māori course and learned how to speak Māori. And then they got asked to do their pepeha, or, you know, learn about their pepeha, which is like, where are you from? Where are your people from? You know, who are your grandparents? What country do they come from? Rah, rah, rah. And she wanted to do hers based on New Zealand, like where she grew up in New Zealand. And her tutor was okay with it, but her tutor challenged her and said like, oh, you know, you should research, have a look at where you're from, your own history, where your grandparents are
That's
from.
good.
You know, that heritage. And what it made her realize is that she's not from that place and she can't just claim it because she thinks she can, you know, or because she felt so attached to it. And I was like, far out, that's so powerful for someone to come to that
Understanding.
realization,
Yeah.
you know. And it's cool because she educated herself by learning about Māori culture and language and stuff like that. And had she not, then she wouldn't have, you know, come to that realization.
And that respect, like you're saying, like with us being here on your land and knowing that this is your ground, you know, the ground that we walk on is Indigenous land. So like what you're bringing that over here for us, just acknowledging and learning and educating ourselves as well while we're here in this whenua and on this land.
100.
And where I live now, I actually live on my great-grandmother's country, Gubbi Gubbi country. So in the suburb that I live in is Kalanga, which means sweet place for the native bees. And I knew my great-grandmother. I grew up with my great-grandmother. So she died when I was 15. So I feel that's the only place I really feel at home because I feel settled, So she walked from Nambour to Cherbourg when she was 5 with her grandmother because she was being shot at.
How far is that?
Nambour, from Brisbane to Cherbourg, it's a 3-hour drive.
And that's with road. But like back then there probably wasn't road.
It was just bush. So
That's crazy.
and I remember her telling a story when I was 8 or 9, and she came to Cherbourg and she said there was nothing. There was just camps set up here and there, and she got word around that they came there, so they had to look for someone that spoke their language. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And her father was a South Sea Island man, so they used to bring all the men over to cut the sugar cane. So that was another slavery.
Yeah.
So, and I drove past Yandina where she was born on the riverbanks, and you see the sugar canes when you drive in, and it just made me sick to my stomach. Like I just didn't feel It wasn't a good place. It was just, yeah.
See, and that's crazy because we can drive past that and be like, oh, look at all the sugarcane, you know, and think it's something that's really cool. Like, far out, man, they harvest heaps of sugarcane here, but not understanding the history of why it's there.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that amazes me about Aboriginal culture, like, because I'm kind of fascinated by it.
Yeah, same.
Even just learning through like the work I do and stuff.
Yeah.
What's up, Alma?
Don't mind that kid.
That kid's gonna get a hiding. Nah, you better not walk in that shot again, bro.
What amazes me is that how many countries there are within Australia and the different languages.
Yeah.
You know, like there's different mobs and stuff like that, and how there were certain processes of having to cross into another country. And the thing that made me learn about it was that, you know, because back when stuff was happening with the stolen generation, is how like they'll take people from one area and put them in another area, thinking, oh, you're all right though because you're with your people.
Yeah.
But it's not.
But it's not. Yeah,
No,
it's
it's
not
not
like
their
that.
land. Yeah.
hard out, and that's the, like, you know, and with Māori it's a bit different, but it's kind of the same. Like, it's tribal, you know. This
Yeah.
area belongs to this people, this area belongs to that people. And I think the other thing that that I like about over here in Australia is doing a welcome to country
Yes.
and acknowledgements, because that
like
kind of
that.
stuff doesn't really happen in New Zealand.
Nah.
You know, you don't hear people get up and say, "I just want to acknowledge
The Māori people.
you know,
the
the-
land.
Hey, do you think, like, I know, sorry, the reason why, like, they acknowledge here is because there's no treaty? Back home, we've got a treaty. Like, you know, when you think about Waitangi, like, just us talking about it, I'm like, do they not acknowledge us as First People because they've already done that with the treaty? There's no treaty here for Indigenous.
Yeah,
you know?
true
like,
that.
why
Maybe.
they acknowledge, you know?
That
I'm
could
just
be an
like-
aspect to it, but I also think, I feel like Indigenous people here in Australia have fought for that. Acknowledge us.
yeah,
I
100.
don't think Māori really have said you need to acknowledge us wherever, whenever, however, at your workplace. I felt like if we'd done that though, we would get heard like that. Personally, that's what I think. But I feel like you guys have always had, you know, there needs to be some acknowledgement here, which is really cool. I like that about. I don't like that it has to be that way, but I just like that we do that. It is cool.
Like acknowledgement is cool, but let's settle some stuff.
100.
Yeah, hard.
yeah.
You
Like,
know what's
yeah.
the, you know what's the thing
Spirit.
that tripped me out the most when we first moved here? Was when you get to the airport in New Zealand, right? When you get to Auckland Airport, the first thing you see when you walk into the airport
good.
is like a, what do you call it? Like a marae thing.
Yeah.
You know, you see, and they've got a
Tickle,
karanga.
yeah.
So a karanga in Māori is like a welcoming onto the land, and it just plays over and over again while people who are coming
Walking
from
in,
international
our
flights
gateway.
are walking into the airport.
Hey, can I butt in? Does anyone like feel the vibes when you walk in that thing? Like when you're like, yo, I'm back home.
Hoo-doo-doos. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, yo, I get the
would.
the ooze. The ooze.
There's
When you
Māori-
walk up and down,
Māori
like, oh,
fairies?
yo, I'm home.
Yeah.
He makes up words. But that's the
Nah,
feeling
that's
that-
who it is.
That's your hero.
You're a crack up, bro. Okay, no, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, but the thing that tripped me out was that coming here, there was none of that. You know?
No
and
flags.
In the airport,
No,
start
nothing.
there.
So you turn up to the
gateway.
airport. Oh, you're in welcome to Australia, and it's what?
Mind
You
you,
don't
we've
have-
only been to like Brisbane and Gold Coast. They might have. Does it anyone?
Oh, I've been
Nah,
to
I don't
Sydney.
really-
I've been to Sydney and
Nah, I've been
Melbourne.
Sydney.
There's
Sure, yeah.
But
nothing,
there's
bro.
no flags. There's nothing that says this is.
Nothing.
do you want to go on that? You want to weigh in on that?
No.
Weigh in on
Well,
that.
do you know where Boundary Street is in West End?
Yep.
Well, Boundary Street,
Yeah, was where
Was-
you couldn't,
it was
yeah,
boundary for.
for Aboriginal people.
True.
Well, as in they weren't allowed to pass.
They weren't allowed to put after
That,
a
like,
certain
legit-
time.
That legit gives me like
Honest-
goosebumps.
like-
like I don't even know what to say.
I think that the thing that trips me out is that back home, right, people, and rightfully so, people complain about the way that our people were mistreated and stuff like that. But every time I have conversations with people back home, I'm like, bro, this is nothing compared to how people were treated in Australia.
It's like not long
And what's
ago.
sad is
Like
that
yes,
it doesn't
we're
get taught.
yes, we've been oppressed. Yes, we've been through some things, but not like
Nah, not
not
like
like
this,
here.
20 years,
Not
like
like here.
30 years ago, like
Yeah.
as in just
We've
recently.
had land
Yeah.
stolen, and that's bad. Like I get that, and I know people are still fighting for all of that kind of stuff, but
Gee, wasn't it
Yeah,
like...
and then
The
you get
corruption that's happened,
and the
yes.
names of some places, like you got Joe Peterson's dam. He used to drive into Cherbourg, and this comes from my auntie. She said he used to drive into Cherbourg and throw peanuts at them like they were chooks.
Far out.
Bro.
And my grandfather would walk over, like a lot of Cherbourg mob went to pick peanuts for him for work, and my grandfather would take like the kids, my aunties and that, and he would just pay them like a bag of peanuts.
Well, it's like didn't the genocides like just stop like not long ago? Was it the genocide?
Or like the shooting and stuff.
I think it was.
Wasn't there a law that was just?
Well, I
I think
mean-
it was only like.
I don't
Wasn't
know.
it 10 or 15 years ago
No.
that
Yes.
stopped, or what?
I don't know. It's a good question to ask
could have a
people
look.
who know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
true.
No, it's only because I remember talking about it to someone. I thought it was you. That's all right.
Yeah, the mistreatment is crazy. And I guess it's cool to talk about, because the only reason I do want to talk about it is because I know that a lot of our followers won't know this stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and it's cool for it to be brought to light,
Yeah.
so that they understand why Indigenous people, what do you call it, respond to certain situations the way they do.
They
Yeah.
do, and it goes back to colonizations, and it's like generational trauma that's been passed
sure,
down through
100%.
generation to generation,
100%.
and we're just stereotyped as drunken black people. Alcohol was
Yeah.
introduced to our mob. That was
Hard
another
out.
way of killing them off, or
Yes.
paying them to do a job.
Yeah.
So all the men were trained up to be stockmen, and all the women were trained up to be housemaids. And the women were sent out to stations, and a lot of women were raped by the station owners. That's when all the half-caste kids come in, and
Yeah.
that's when all the government wanted to get all the half-caste and bring them up like white people and not let them know their culture. And, you know, that's not spoken about,
No.
you know. And that's, you get that passed down, like men that were married and their wives were being raped and having kids to white men, and they didn't know, they weren't allowed to be affectionate to their kids. You weren't. And then there were kids that were brought up in the dormitory. So my great-grandmother and my great-grandfather looked after, my great-grandfather looked after the boys, my great-grandmother looked after the girls. My great-grandmother would nurse a lot of newborns that were sent to Cherbourg. And I had a friend, his grandfather was sent to Cherbourg in a shoebox. And they didn't know where they come from, stuff like that. And the kids that were brought up in the dormitory weren't allowed to mix with their family that were on the mission. And there was a big fence around the dormitory. They could just see them through the fence. They weren't allowed to talk to them or nothing. So you got kids that, you know, that's been passed down through generation to generation, and then you got behavioural patterns because of that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
And people often don't understand why a kid is reacting the way they react. You know?
Because they don't take the time to understand, like the backstory of why, like you said, generational curses and generational trauma that's been passed down.
Yeah. Oppression.
I remember we done this. It was like an activity for like a work conference thing that I had, and it was like a walk through history in Australia. And there were people who couldn't handle it because they didn't know.
They didn't know.
You know, and there were people breaking down and crying.
Yeah.
And they wanted the person that was presenting to stop. Like, can you stop, please?
Yeah.
Like, because this is so much for me to process, and I just didn't know. You know, and it's crazy because they've lived in Australia their whole life,
And
they
they
didn't
but
didn't
they
know.
just didn't
They
know
They didn't know.
that all of this.
So you
Stuff
got
is
your
happening.
identity taken from you. You're taken off your land. You weren't allowed to speak your language. And then on top of that, the superintendent would say, "You marry this one," and our law, you weren't allowed to marry that unless it was proper kinship way.
Yeah.
So you had all of that all intertwined and messed up.
Yeah. Australia has a long history of a lot of.
Yeah.
The only thing I knew about Indigenous people was from rabbit-proof fence. That was the only thing. And
You should
I'm-
watch
even- I'm
Charlie.
still-
Yeah,
I'm still
Charlie's
learning new
story.
things. It's
Yeah,
Charlie's story is cool.
yeah. And there's another one that just come out, and it talks about a black fella. Now he actually, it's a true story. He shoots the white fella for raping his wife, and they take him to trial. Yeah.
Wow.
Try to
for defending
remember,
himself?
just for defend himself, and because he couldn't have children, so he knew that his wife was
Yeah.
pregnant. Yeah, raped.
True.
So
We
Check it
have
out.
some close friends of ours that have kind of set up a experience. It's called the Red Sands in Beanley.
yeah,
And we've had some
that's
talks
the mob
with-
that were dancing yesterday.
Oh, is it the mob? Oh,
Yeah, it
choice,
is,
choice.
yeah.
Well, we have friends,
name,
close
Eddie?
friends to us,
The elder.
who are the organisers of that place, and they've talked to us about a lot of the reactions and responses in sharing the story. Do you remember what
You know
Rod would
what?
say?
And Dreamtime.
The first thing I want to address is how good food is, like indigenous food.
It's the
My
bomb.
bad, just because we went to the Spirit of the Red Sands
Spirit of the Red Sands.
and we ate
Sands.
there and we had like
Ten-
stuff that was like it had like lemon myrtle in it
Yum.
and like
It was
all
so
these
good.
other
It was alligator,
indigenous
It was
herbs
indigenous
and stuff.
kind.
Yeah, we had like alligator and stuff and like
Crocodile.
Bro, but
Sorry, alligator, crocodile. Yeah.
oh, alligator crocodile.
Hey, look, guys,
Hey,
we,
look,
we
that's
highly
how
recommend the
un-Australian we are.
food.
We don't
Yeah.
know.
Crocodile Dundee.
We highly recommend the food. But where I'm going to with that point was actually talking.
Sorry, my
No,
bad.
that's all right. It's fine.
Experience, eh?
Where I'm,
Straight away
where I'm
food,
going
eh?
to was talking about the experience, but
Hungry.
talking about the feedback that the workers and the mob and the crew that they would get there. And I think a lot of the time there were people that would react, like kind of how you were saying in your work situation when you guys.
Oh yeah, they're like, stop. This
yeah,
is not right.
This
like,
is not right. And they were just acting because what it is an experience. You
No, but it was even people in the crowd that were wanting it to stop because they were like, this isn't fair. It's not right for you to be talking about this stuff.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is sad. And I understand people get emotional and stuff like that.
This is
But
the
I'm like,
truth.
bro, this is the reality
Yeah. It
of
needs
what
to
has
be
happened.
told.
It does.
Well, I
It
think
needs
I
to
had
be
a,
told.
when we had a conversation with one of our family friends, he did say that there have people that have come in and they've been mad because they've shared their story. You know, the Aboriginal people have shared the story about what's happened to them in the Red Sands experience, and so that was pretty. It's interesting to see different responses to it, but yeah, I think we were so impacted by that. We loved it 100%, and if you're still going, I recommend go and check it out. It's a beautiful.
I got in trouble from the guy who was the preacher
Boy, the white fillet.
because I was talking.
Was he serious? He was serious. eh? Oh,
Nah,
it was
it's
part of the
acting,
plan.
like-
Yeah.
Play.
Because it's like an experience. Like you kind of walk through.
You're part of the whole.
You're a
scene.
part of the whole thing. You're like.
And when you when you walked through it, did you ever like? So you saying you saw it through a black fella's eye, or
Yeah.
you just
Yeah,
like
you-
Oh well, what you experience is like the
Treatment.
mistreatment of people,
First.
and even how
One
and
one
it's-
one
but
thing.
his-
But
one thing
they were yelling at you like you were the.
yeah,
the you know,
but
They
you
were-
know
they
what?
were-
Something. Sorry.
Sorry, no.
You know what? Something that that weighs heavy on my heart all the time is the fact that our people don't like God, or how Christianity was brought
By a
into
white
our
man.
country, which is fair.
100.
You know what I mean? Because it wasn't done right, bro.
Yeah.
Things were twisted and turned to make things sound like they were in the name of Christ and stuff like that. And people were treated badly, and I don't blame, our people for
Hating religion.
hating religion and Christianity.
Yeah.
I don't blame them,
Right, yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, for sure.
But man, it hurts my heart.
And see, for us as Aboriginal people, we're spiritual people, but
Hard out.
we already had a relationship with the Creator, because in every
That's same-
every
that's
language,
same as
there,
Māori,
yeah,
100%.
there's a name for Creator, and our Dreamtime story is about creation. So some of our mob are against it because they think it's a white fella thing, but it's
Yeah.
not.
No, you're right.
It's not.
100%. I remember.
God blessed us as
Do you want to hop
certain
in?
people of certain
Do you
lands.
want to hop
You
in here
know,
real quick? Come on,
Do you
bring
wanna-
it to us.
want to say something?
I'll just
You can sit here.
just come over
We're
here.
just
bud.
going to tag in.
Hey
We're gonna
guys,
tag in,
welcome
jump
welcome
in.
our girl here. What's your name, girl?
Haley.
Nope.
Haley. Everyone say what's up to
Welcome
Haley.
everyone.
Just my own, not my own experience, but my father, who
You're going red, my love. You're going red.
just from my father, who was in the dormitory in Cherbourg. He told me that it's very hard for him to, I guess, it was forced upon them as children to about God and everything like that. So that's why he's so
Hates it.
Yeah, and you get a lot of mob that's
Yeah.
And so I said to him one time, I was like, but why aren't you open to it and learning a bit more about it? My family are Christian people, but I just questioned him, and he said, it's honestly because it was forced upon us, and that's what has turned me off. And it was really sad to hear that, but yeah, that's what happened to him. And as you were saying, I was like, wow, it just brings memories. When I was talking to my dad about it.
Yeah.
So,
And it is sad. It's something, and that's why I say it hurts my heart, because if people knew how much God loved them, and how much God
That's what it is.
doesn't want that for his people,
No.
and how much we were lied to
Yes.
about God and how much he loves us.
Oh, preach.
But you're right, because people just don't want a bar of it. You bring up God and they're like, stuff your God.
Yeah.
And that hurts my heart, because the only reason why it does is because for me personally, I come from a background where my family grew up drinking alcohol, doing drugs.
Yeah.
I come from that. That's the place I come from.
Are
My
we
parents-
related?
Probably.
We all are.
My parents left there when I was 3 years old. When I was 8, they became Christian.
Yeah.
For the last 20 years, my dad hasn't touched a cigarette
That's good.
or a drop of alcohol. That's the impact that God had
The God we know.
on my life
Yeah.
personally.
God we know.
And that, that for me was the example of God. And I know that other people's example of God is something totally different.
Yeah.
But in my heart, I'm like, man, if only they knew
The God I know.
the God I know and how much he can impact your life.
Yeah. And the white man forced it on our people that our culture was evil. You read the Bible, it talks all about culture, ceremony.
That's right.
Hard out.
That's right. 100.
Yeah. When I went up to Lajamanu, it's a community right in the centre of Australia, in the Tanamine Desert. And we went and spoke to one uncle there. And he said, when the missionaries came and started preaching to us, he's like, what? He said he was talking about stuff, and he's like, I know that one. And that's all he said. He said he was preaching out of Numbers. He said when he was talking, he's saying, I know that one. That's ceremony.
Yeah.
We do that.
Yeah.
And that's all he said. And I went back and I reading that. I was like, hey, that's...
Different
And that's the
names.
thing, like,
Different names.
Yeah.
because a connection with God isn't something that you read in a book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was no Bible around when our people knew who God was.
No.
Yeah. They were already talking to him.
That's
Yeah.
right.
They were already
Had a
in a
relationship
with God, which is
With the
powerful.
land, with the seasons, with the
it.
animals, like with totems.
Totems.
Like, I know.
Who made the totems? They were telling us our totems were evil. Who made? God made.
Exactly.
God made the animals. Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
See, even talking about totems like this here is like my moko kauai. Like being a Christian, I got this done when I was a Christian. But for me, like it's my heritage, it's my genealogy, and like there's a lot of things I know, like being in church and stuff, and I'm learning about my culture and just learning. I think for myself personally. What is God? And I like you when you're talking about how like some things in our culture, that's witchcraft.
Yeah.
We can't talk about that. Like, and I think for me, it's just really searching it out for myself to get a better understanding, not based on anyone else's perception or what they think of it.
Yeah, it's good. Just a question for the both of you. What do you do moving forward? How do you daily carry yourself, and what is it that you do to deal with the oppression that kind of seeps in through, like, because I know that we all know that it's a spiritual war before it's a war that happens in the physical. So what are the ways that you guys cope or manage or deal or find that hope in amongst all of this craziness that's been going on, like what is your go-to? As we understand that you are a woman of faith or know of God, like just maybe talk to us a little bit about that. Like, what do you?
I don't go to like church, like in a building anymore, because to me that's just a white man. I get more out of sitting on country and talking to God, and I don't feel like the churches today don't, like some try to say they support us, and they forget that their church is on stolen land.
True.
And they're all about, they talk about building up the church. The church are the people, it's not the building.
Come on, that's good.
Yeah, so be
That's
more,
good.
that's what I see. So
Connect.
and
That's
people
good.
say, oh, you got to go to church. No, I don't. As long as my relationship with the Lord's right, I know I'm right. And like I said, I get more out of sitting on country, being with God, than sitting in a church with people. Yeah, and that's what Jesus did. He didn't sit in no building. He went out and he spoke to the people. Yeah.
It's good to hear your
And you even read, like, when he went to different cities, he didn't just walk in. He acknowledged the people before he walked in.
And if they
that's,
accepted him, then
Yeah.
he'd go in. If not, then he'd leave.
yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Hayden?
Look, I think it's pretty much what Aunty Sharon has said.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory, but yeah. But, I'm 29 years of age. My family are strong Christian people. But it's just for myself, I know, I'm a bit on the fence when it comes to things like that. But, when you get older, you do want to know more. And, when it comes to that kind of stuff, like my great-grandmother was a strong Christian woman and prayed every night and things like that. So it's something that you observe as a young person, but when you get older, you kind of, as I said, it's sitting on the fence. But yeah, I think Aunty Sharon basically said it all, and yeah.
From here, we want to have a positive outcome and we want to take action. So if you can donate, please donate. But do you have places where we can do that?
Yeah, I can flick you.
Stay posted.
Yeah.
Stay posted. We'll
Because
have
I'll
the
have to
link.
look for it. Like, even if you look up the Sisters Inside website, they should have some stuff on there.
Awesome.
And there's also a petition going around for the young, is it David Duggai Jr.? His parents spoke yesterday. So he was a young boy that said the same thing, like, I can't breathe, and was over rice crackers, biscuits.
Wow.
And
That's
he's
crazy.
the officer said to him, well, if you can speak, you can breathe.
Yeah.
So he said it about 12 times. So his family were there speaking yesterday. So they got a petition going around too that you can sign. I'll flick it to you on Facebook.
We'll put the
Awesome.
link.
So we're going to put all the
we'll
links.
Put the
Yeah.
links up.
So we can take action and obviously make some momentum, keep that momentum happening.
Yeah.
And more conversations like this needs to
Hard
happen
out.
too.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
I think if there's any encouragement I could give to people, it's to educate yourself around what's happened in this country, the things you can do to help, and also, like, we're talking about it off camera, like how we can behave in different areas
Yeah.
that is respectful to the people that
Yeah.
own that land.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because we spoke
had
about
off camera. We had a conversation, and I just said to Auntie that we're gonna get our kids around and learn and get them to know and understand just how to approach situations, how to do certain things, don't do certain things. You know what I mean? And it's good for them to learn that and to be aware and have that cultural awareness. So yeah.
Yeah.
hard out.
I just want to apologise for my son that's been coming in the shop all night. He has no ears at all.
Middle child.
Hey,
We say Binangari.
Binangari.
Binagari.
Not
He was-
Binangari.
Binagari.
Binangari.
How would you say, like, go away?
Go away.
Or like, listen.
Gap
Or
it up.
like,
No.
back off. What did you say?
I said back off.
Back off.
You bark like a dog.
Yeah, that's another thing I wanted to talk about too. Is like,
Oh, no.
it's like lingo and stuff.
Yeah, hard.
We only know
On a
few
positive
because
note, I
it wasn't
guess. Deadly.
spoken. Our
Yeah.
great grandparents weren't allowed to, but like Me, I'm like doing research myself. Yeah. And I teach my grandson little words,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I think the coolest lingo I've heard so far, it's
Yeah.
not the actual indigenous language, but deadly.
Deadly. Yeah,
Fire,
deadly.
That's deadly. Like that's
We say,
Tira.
hey.
yeah, or solid, we got solid.
Solid.
What do we say?
Gangster.
Gangster.
Gee.
Gangster.
Safe.
Or bad.
So, yo, always say yo.
Shot.
Hey,
Me.
so what's a totem? Can we clarify what a
Oh,
totem
yo.
is, please? Because when I got here, I was like, what's a totem?
You don't have totem.
A totem is.
A totem is
Let her answer. Answer.
totem is animal. Could be just being passed down from your. You can either follow your grandmother or your grandfather. So ours was Willy Wagtail from my great grandmother, and then we just found out that her dreaming was butterfly dreaming. So everywhere we go, we'd see the Willy Wagtail, so we know that we're being looked after and it's right to go to certain places. So even when I go to someone else's country, I'm like, oh, protect me, Lord, I respect the elders, do a little prayer. And then a Willy Wagtail will come and I'm like, I'm right, my grandmother's with me. Little things like that, or a kookaburra is my grandfather, or an owl. And it also, animals also will tell you like, sorry business coming too.
True.
Sorry,
Yeah.
business as in like not good stuff?
Yeah, like someone dying.
Oh,
Got
ours is like
you.
a fantail, like a bird, like from where I'm
Ours
from.
like
Or a
a-
bird flying into your
yeah.
house.
Yeah. into
Yeah,
your
ours
house.
is like an owl.
you
That
have to
means
chase it out.
sorry business.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Sorry, business. That's cool.
I think Cook Islanders is teeth. Like if you dream of teeth, someone's gonna die.
If
Yeah.
you dream of teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
And they
think
happen
that
in
is-
threes, like in our
Yeah,
culture.
the us
so
too,
threes,
yeah.
the death.
Teeth though.
yeah, that's like with the. And kookaburra means someone, a woman, like Jandabari, like pregnant. Yeah.
Hopefully
So-
I see some more of those Jandavais.
What a girl, eh?
But my
Jandava-
grandmother also said it means good news too. So you always got to go feed them.
Feed the Jandavai and the
Yo.
Jandavai will come to you. Yeah,
kookaburra.
I need a
kookaburra,
daughter.
my brother.
Like,
Feed the
seriously,
kookaburra.
I need a daughter. I got 3 boys. I need a. that's it.
Jandabari is pregnant.
He
Yeah.
goes, I need a gender bar. I need a gender bar.
She needs the Jagavari.
Yeah.
You're a jug of virus.
Jagavirus. Sorry. Yeah, I'll learn the
You
word.
might eat kookaburra
Oh,
soon, eh?
mate, I love ya.
Kookaburra.
I love kookaburras. I always hear them when I'm
Dreaming,
at
and you
work.
said,
We're going to wrap it up so they can
Oh,
go
yeah.
home. It's a long drive.
Yeah, okay.
That's
Yes,
pretty
yes.
late. Yeah.
Before we leave, though, is there anything that you did want to talk about, or
I just wanted to ask, how did it feel for you, like, doing the haka? Like, how did that feel? Because that, for us, that was like, it felt really, how can you say it? It just felt good that you wanted to come and stand with our mob. Yeah.
I think for our people, I mean, I wasn't there, but for us, like that's like our greatest expression, you know, when something good happens or something bad, the way our culture express ourselves, you know, whether it's, and sometimes we do like in battle or whatever, or when there's a challenge that gets put
It's
forward.
a war cry.
It's
hey.
a war cry, you know, and for us, that's like our greatest level of expression as a people. So
To acknowledge, eh?
yeah,
Yeah,
Because
especially
it's definitely
yesterday.
spiritual as well. You're not
Oh,
just
yeah.
stamping your feet and slapping your chest. There's a shaking in your spirit that happens, and I think it does the same thing when people are watching and engaging in it too. They're like, "What is this?" And I just seen a rapper in America actually share someone doing a haka, or like a couple of people doing a haka in Christchurch, New Zealand, and I was like, and his caption said, "This is so powerful," and it just blows my mind at how it impacts people so much. It's powerful.
Yeah.
Different.
Especially,
Oh, no,
Sorry,
no,
babe?
no, you go.
I was telling my husband yesterday after I did we did the haka. Honestly, I felt like I was gonna black out. Like during the haka, I felt like, and I told him, I was like, I get shaky, and I'm like, he's like, it's your iron levels. I'm like, no, it's not. It's more than that. It's more than my iron levels.
not.
And just yesterday,
gotta breathe.
Gotta breathe. But I think just
There's a lot of tensing.
No, it was just because we understand we're spiritual people.
Yeah.
And acknowledging first and foremost that we're here, we acknowledge that this is your land, and as brothers and sisters, we unite together as one. And the declaration of the haka we did yesterday, it was talking about two tangatas to stand tall, stand proud. But mana wahine, mana tane, mana rangatira, that's men, women, and children. So that's families, that's whānau as a whole. We were talking and declaring. And we got, we were allowed to do that and to stand alongside our brothers and our sisters because they gave us the opportunity to do that and declare it in the atmosphere. So it was definitely an emotional. I think I was just proud just to stand there and finally say, okay, yeah, we did it today, but every day after, every day, like from today onwards.
Yeah. Because the second time they did it, just before we went across the bridge, they were calling down for UMOB to come up again. And then when it was done there too, it was powerful. And I was holding gum leaves, so we use gum leaves as a part of ceremony, like healing. And I was just like, and then I just like threw the gum leaves to land, like that's, you can feel that there's healing coming, like a change coming.
It's empowering.
That's cool.
I would have jumped in that haka, but somebody thought it'd be cool to put the baby in a pram and put like 3 bags on top of the stroller, and the pram tipped. It wasn't our kid; it was somebody else's kid. So,
Sorry.
So thank you, person with the 3 bags on your
to whoever it was, if you are gonna do a haka, make sure your kids are looked after.
It was my fault. Okay, I told her to jump up.
One bag went on the stroller, another bag, and then boom, the pram tipped, and I was like, wow, and I was looking at the haka, I was like,
okay.
I'll watch the kids next time.
I just got it.
That's cool. And I think too, like, culture knows culture. You know what I mean? So even with you saying that, like, an American rapper was like, this is powerful, it's because we know, like, our spirits feel that.
That's it.
On a deeper level, like, even watching it, people could be like, far out, that's so cool, like, that they done that. But then when you watch something like that, you're like, holy heck, like, you get goosebumps.
Our native tongue, our tongue is the weapon. That's what God's given us to be able to. Kia ora. And that's why we need to learn. All right, that wraps us up, guys. How do we close this?
we have a guest performer tonight.
She's sitting in the crowd. Let's go.
But yeah, thank you to our guest.
Yeah, thank you for coming and sharing with us and just being here.
Giving us some insight of what you guys, because it'd be cool for us four to talk, but to get you in here has been a privilege.
I came to this podcast unprepared, like in a good way. Like I didn't know much history about. Like I said, like it was just rabbit-proof fences, the only kind of thing I knew about.
Yeah.
But it's cool just hearing your stories and sharing stuff that your personal experiences. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Hard out.
Thank you for inviting us and wanting to know. That's all we ask is that, mob want to know stuff, just come, ask us to come. We'll come sit with you. Yeah.
You know when you say like mountains, do we have to like walk up a mountain?
No, there's a lookout there. No. We don't walk the mountains because they're sacred. Only the white people walk up there. That's why they fall off, because they're not allowed to walk on them.
Haha, yes, that's my way out of going hiking and stuff. I ain't allowed to walk up the mountain, cuz.
You can just go to the lookout and then you can see, and then I could talk.
Yeah, for sure. Keen as.
All right. Bless you.
Are we going to pray?
Yeah.
Go, Auntie.
Okay.
You got this.
Okay. Oh, Wapara Father God, we just come before you and we're just thankful, Lord, that you have brought us together as brothers and sisters. And it says in your word, Lord, that, you will call every nation from north, south, east and west to come together, Lord. And you also says when one or two are gathered in my name. Lord, and we just give thanks to you, Lord, that you made this happen, Father God. And we just thank you, Father God. And we just give thanks for the stuff that's going to be happening from onwards, Lord, because this conversation is going to continue, Lord. And we thank you, Lord. And we thank you for the crowd that came together too, Lord. And we just ask you to continue to open their eyes and open their ears too, Father God, to the unseen, Father God. We just ask you, Lord, to be with the family here tonight as we go, Lord. Be with us as we lead, Lord. And you keep leading us, Lord. Wherever you lead, we will follow, Lord. as it is in heaven, Lord. We're just your vessels, Lord, and you are using us, Lord, and we'll continue to go where you lead us, Lord. We thank you for tonight, Lord, and the next conversation, the next gathering, Lord, that you are going to bring together, Lord. We just thank you once again, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, everyone.
I feel enlightened.
I feel enlightened too. That was beautiful.
That was super gangster.
That was so good.
Beginning, it was like,
I could feel the tense. I think
Bro,
we
honest-
just knew it was just.
oh no, because it's real.
It is. Yeah.
I hope they recorded it.
Bro, legit, I could talk about this for
I could
days,
talk about
bro.
this for days too. 100%.
I love this kind of stuff.